I know that one of the things we want to be doing this evening is being encouraging and to be encouraged. We're going to read Revelation 3:14 to 22. And you might be asking yourself, well, what on earth are we doing reading this passage? It's not very encouraging, is it? But I'm not turning to this passage because I think we are like the church in Laodicea. Am I saying that right, by the way, in English? Because Mark, can you tell me if I'm saying it right? Because
in English, people tend to say Laodicea.
Laodicea, okay, okay. Because in Welsh it would be Laodicea. So okay, Laodicea. Yeah, so I don't think that we are like the church in Laodicea. I think it's very easy to do some sweeping statements, and I think really it's a personal matter. But there are certain truths that come out in this passage that are incredibly helpful, especially to us who work with kids and with young people. So we're going to read Revelation 3:14 to 22. I would somebody be willing to do that for us? Just put your hands up if you're willing to read for us. Terza Jones, thank you for putting your hand up.
Yeah, no problem. And to the church, and to the angel of the church in Laodicea write, the words of the Amen, the faithful and true witness, the beginning of God's creation. I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. Would that you were either cold or hot. So because you are lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spit you out of my mouth. For you say, I am rich. I have prospered and I need nothing, not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. I counsel you to buy from me gold refined by fire, so that you may be rich, and white garments, so that you may clothe yourself, and the shame of your nakedness may not be seen, and salve to anoint your eyes, so that you may see. Those whom I love, I reprove and discipline, so be zealous and repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me. The one who conquers, I will grant him to sit with me on my throne, as I also conquered and sat down with my Father on his throne. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, just spot myself. There we go. So as I say, I wanted just to look at this passage just quickly and draw three things out that hopefully will be a help to us. And the first thing I wanted to say is Christ has his eye on you and on your work. Christ has his eye on you and on your work. It's one of the things that comes out clearly in the first chapters of Revelation. Christ is in the middle. He stands amongst the lampstands, and that's not just a figurative theological statement. He's there. He when he's writing to the church, he says, I know your works. In other places, with other letters to the other churches, he talks about specific people. He talks about specific issues that the churches are dealing with. It's as if he's there sitting in the back of their meetings, in the middle of their prayer meetings. He knows what's going on. He's there spiritually. He understands what's going on. He says, here for you say, I am rich. And he's able to warn and to correct. He's involved and he sees what's going on in these churches, and specifically in this church in Laodicea. Now, this wouldn't have been a surprise to John. It was all so close together, wasn't it? It was within his lifetime. He'd spent time with Jesus. They'd spent time with the real Christ, with him in person. He'd given the Great Commission before he'd gone to heaven, and John knew that he hadn't gone far away. John knew that Christ would be looking at the church and at the churches as the gospel went out. But I wonder, do we recognize that the same is true for us today? Do we think sometimes that Christ has too much to do, that he can't be in everywhere at the same time? He can't have time to be with us, and therefore he's just letting us get on with it. Let me give you an illustration. I'm the governor of the local school, and every few weeks I meet up with the head teacher, and we discuss what's going on, and specifically what's going on with the children. And what's been quite interesting is over lockdown, there have been some children who have been really engaging with the work and have been taking part and so on. But then there are other children who have they've just kind of just drifted away. They've kind of thought, well, because they're far away, because the teachers are in school, they're not really engaged, and they think that the teachers aren't really engaged. But what's interesting as a governor is I meet with the head teacher every few weeks, and he knows exactly what's going on. He knows who's engaging with the lessons, and he knows who's not. And if it's true there, well, it's even more true, isn't it, with Jesus? He has his eyes on each one of us. He has his eye on you and on your work. He knows you. He saved you. He died for you. The Father has given you to him, and there's no way he's going to leave you or forget you. He's got his eyes on you. One of the great stories we like to, and one of the great illustrations we like to show to children, isn't it, is that Christ is like a shepherd. And so often we can tell the stories, and we can tell the children and the young people that Christ cares for them. We sometimes maybe forget that he cares for us. It's personal for Jesus. It's his work that we're involved in, and he's got his eyes on the churches, on the church, on your work. If I can put it like this, he's got a vested interest in it. He's there sitting with you when you're preparing. He knows about that kid who keeps changing his virtual background in Zoom when you're trying to do a talk. He knows and he sees you. He knows spiritually what's going on. He knows what's happening, and he's not far away. And that's a massive comfort, isn't it? To know that Christ loves us, and to know that we're not on our own. Christ has his eye on us. And we need to remember that these days more than ever before. So that's the first thing. Christ has his eyes on us. But the second thing that we see is the importance of looking to God. The importance of looking to God. We have a call to prayer this week with EMW, and this morning we used an illustration of, you know, those pictures where you look at them and different people can see different things. And there's one particular picture where some people see an old man, and then another person sees a beautiful young lady. I don't know if it's supposed to mean something, but the church here, you get this kind of feeling that the church, they're looking at their situation and they're seeing something completely different to what God is seeing. It couldn't be more different. We read, don't we? For you say, I am rich, I have prospered, and I need nothing, not realizing that you are wretched, pitiable, poor, blind, and naked. It's actually scary to think that there's a church and that there are Christians who so close to Jesus in one sense, in terms of time, in terms of geography, but they've slipped so far away so fast. What's gone on? What's gone wrong with the church? Well, it's clear that they'd started to look at other things apart from the Lord. They obviously put their trust in other things. They think that they're rich, they think that they're okay, but their love for the Lord has grown tepid. They were still involved in the work. They weren't cold, but they'd somehow lost their way completely. And there's a warning and guidance for us here. We need to look at God. We need to look to God. He understands. He sees things for what they are. He will guide. He will discipline us. And that discipline can be difficult, as it was here with Laodicea. It was very tough for them to hear this. But if they were just to look at God, if they were just to look at him, to seek his ways, then he would guide them. He uses strong language with them, doesn't he? But he wants to turn them towards him. And that's so important to us. We need to keep our eyes on the Lord. You see, what's the most important part of being a youth or a kids club leader? Is it being able to do all the arts and crafts? Is it being able to be popular? Is it being able to understand children? Is it being able to be a really good communicator? Well, all of those things are good and are important, but the main thing is to love God. The main thing, the most important thing, is to be near God, is to search for him, is to look to him at all points. It's by coming to him that the church will be restored here with Laodicea, isn't it? Christ tells them, come and buy gold, buy garments, buy things for your eyes. Now, what does he mean here? Well, the church certainly didn't have things themselves to buy these things, but Christ has bought them for them. And we need to come to Christ as we are, humbly looking to him, depending on him, reaching out in faith to him. I was this afternoon when I was preparing, I was remembering a comment I'd read somewhere, and thankfully a friend told me where it was. It's E.M. Bounds who said, people, we are looking for better methods, but God is looking for better people. And that's true, isn't it? And it's certainly true in youth work and in kids work. We need to look at Christ. We need to look at God. We need to depend on him. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing, quickly, we need to remember the amazing love of Christ. We need to remember the amazing love of Christ. One of the things that home learning has shown me is that I've grown very impatient. I don't know if it's with age. I used to be a teacher. 30 kids were no problem for me. I could even take a whole assembly with hundreds of children. I could stand in front of them and get on with things. But give me my own son, Ben, and I lose it completely. I get frustrated. I have to tell him stuff again and again and again. And what really gets me is when he doesn't even bother. You can see that he's not even listening to me, and I get so impatient. Well, how easy would it have been for Christ to do that here with the church in Laodicea? He's talking here to Christians. They should know better. They are people who have responded to his call. They are people who have repented. They are people who have heard the gospel. But look at him. He's at the door. He's there waiting for them. His love is absolute. Not only has he died for them, but he's waiting for them. He's not impatient. He waits for them. And he's the same with us. He died for us. He was nailed on the tree for us. He bore God's wrath for us. But it doesn't stop there. His love doesn't just stop on the cross. He's there with us at all times. He's there at the door to bring us back, caring, loving us. And it's so important for us to remember this. It's important to remember when he seems far away, when our faith is weak, we need to remember that Christ loves us. His love is astonishing. You know, my favorite thing, one of my favorite things is having a cwtch with my 5-year-old daughter. I love just having a cwtch with her and feeling her love towards me. It's usually because I've got a biscuit or something to give her, but no matter about that. But in a sense, what we need to do is to come to Christ and have that cwtch, to feel his love, to know that he loves us. And we see it here in Laodicea. He was disciplining them, but he was disciplining them to bring them back because he loved them. This is so important in ministry. When Christ points things out to us, when we struggle, if as Christ was with the church here in Laodicea, he's pointing things out, and often we're sinners, he'll point things out in our lives, and we shouldn't hide away from these things. We need to go to him. We need to open the door, We need to let him come in and do his stuff, to take us to Calvary, to deal with our sin. And it's absolutely lovely, isn't it, that the illustration he gives here, I will eat with you. It's one of the things that we've missed so much over lockdown, is having friends around. Can't wait to have friends back in the house, to have a meal, to have a laugh, to probably eat too much, but to share stories, enjoy company. And that is what Christ does. Let me give you an example. I want you to think now about the kids club or a youth group that you're involved with. And I'm sure if you're like me, we've all been here where we've had a bad week. We may have struggled, we may have sort of not been able to do our quiet times. We may be feeling a bit under the weather, and we kind of know that the kids club is coming. It's kind of looming. What we can sometimes do, and what I can sometimes do, is I can almost scuttle into that kids club through the back door. I do it, but Christ seems far away. I feel guilty. I do it because I have to do it. I think that Christ is probably angry with me because of the way that I've lived my life during the week. There's something kind of mechanical about it. There's no real enjoyment in the club itself, and the kids pick up on it. But there's a different way, isn't there? We can approach that same club differently. We can spend 5 minutes in the car before the club, or in front of the screen before the Zoom meeting, and we can pray. We can pour our hearts out to Christ. We can tell him that we've had a rubbish week. We can come to the cross. We can repent, and Christ returns, and we've opened the door, and the club is different. We have love. We're able to love that annoying kid. We love him because we've been loved ourselves. We tell the story, and we're almost a bit emotional because it's so close to our heart. We have fun because we feel the freedom, because we've been forgiven. We have nothing to hide, and the kids see it, and the Lord is glorified, and we're eating with Christ. And that's what Christ wants. It's why he died for you and me on the cross. So 3 things just to help us and to encourage us. Christ has his eyes on you. It's important that we look to God, but we always need to remember the amazing love of Christ.